All right, welcome in to Big Hitters Only. This is the post-Pitt reaction pod with Mike Hardison. We're recording on Sunday, October 6th at 9:02 a.m. Should be in your feeds late Sunday or early Monday. We appreciate you listening. And make sure to check out Friday's podcast. I did a solo podcast on UNC Basketball Media Day. Kind of just brain dumped my thoughts from going to Chapel Hill and interviewing 8 or 10 players and talking to Hubert for about 30 minutes. So that's a good thing if you want to talk about some optimistic things. Mike, what's going on, man?
Hey, not much, man. Good to be sitting here on a Sunday morning. Nice cup of coffee as opposed to right after the game. It feels nice to be able to kind of decompress after another loss. Yeah, excited to get into it. I think there's a lot to talk about, unfortunately.
For sure. So UNC falls to 3-3 overall, 0-2 in the ACC, coming off the Duke loss. They've now lost to Pitt at home. They have Georgia Tech next weekend. They lost 34-24, and this was a game. This was a game in the fourth quarter. UNC had shots to win, but I think the central theme was they couldn't stop Eli Holstein, the Pittsburgh quarterback. And what I want to point to, and what Mack talked about in his post-game press conference, was the going for it on 4th and 2 early in late in the first quarter, and then late in the third quarter. Let's see, what is that?
Fourth quarter.
Early in the fourth quarter, 12:44 mark, going for it on 4th and 1. Both times they're inside the 10. Eventually falling 34-24. And Pitt just kind of eventually the better quarterback won, I think, was my general takeaway. And UNC doesn't have the quarterback. Again, kind of the same story, but I want to approach this in a little bit different way. What were your initial thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, so I think we kind of talked about it yesterday, but the big thing that stuck out for me were the fourth downs. So not only did we turn the ball over twice on downs within the 10-yard line at Pitt, we also turned it a total of 4 times over on downs, all in Pittsburgh territory. When you're making the decision to go for it, when you're making the decision to say, hey, you know what, we're going to be aggressive, you actually have the plays to back it up. I think they had 1 fourth down conversion, and everything else, Pitt was ready for it. The fourth quarter one in particular, it was a run up the gut, and they just stacked the box, and that was that. And then, generally, our secondary, again, kind of just isn't there. I do agree. I think Holstein's the best quarterback they've faced, at least this season so far. But there's kind of being it's been a consistent thing for a couple of seasons now. Carolina against a dual threat quarterback really struggles. They look at who else this season tore us up. It was Alonzo from JMU, another dual threat quarterback. I think I had Holstein at 381 yards passing, 76 yards rushing, total 4 touchdowns. Anytime they face somebody that they can't, have a very simple game plan against, they typically struggle. And super concerning, especially with Georgia Tech coming into town, with Haynes King being another dual threat quarterback who they struggled with last year. So I think it's just one of those things where, I get frustrated. I think at this point, it's kind of more from frustration to just kind of acceptance. We're later stage of Kubler-Ross model in the season in terms of dealing with grief here. I am interested to see how the team kind of responds to the rest of the season. It looked like they're pretty deflated yesterday, especially losing another winnable game at home. I think the fan base is kind of checked out at this point.
Yeah.
We're really worried about that noon kickoff next weekend.
Yeah. Well, I was there in Chapel Hill yesterday, and it wasn't a great crowd to start. What you expect from a 12 kickoff?
Yep.
Didn't really get much better. God, maybe 50% full at one point, but then dwindling down to 30% full. And then, at halftime, a lot of people left. Just naturally, you expect some students to leave. And then by the third, fourth quarter, when it was a game. It was, God, let me pull up the scoring here.
It was 17-17 at half, right?
Yeah, and then 24-17 Pitt, and then 24-24 in the third quarter when John Kupenhaver had that touchdown. So late in the third, it was 24-24, and UNC obviously had chances, so they were moving the ball, which, especially in the first quarter when they went on that 19-play drive, you're like, all right, the offense is moving the ball. You're getting Amar and Hampton cooking. But yeah, the crowd was homecoming. It was sad. It was spark. You could sit anywhere you want to sit. The student section was pretty weak. And at this point, sometimes I get on the student section in the past on Twitter of blaming the students. Look, dude, we are a ranked team. We have an awesome quarterback. It's a 6 p.m. kickoff, which is 3:30. What are you doing? Are you in the library? Why is the student section not full in the third quarter? But this, you can't really blame students from leaving and people not wanting to invest financially and time-wise. I mean, I remember I got a text from, I won't reveal his name because he is a governmental official, but he said, like, I just wasted my whole Saturday. Because you're getting there at 10 a.m., you're tailgating,
Yep.
you're driving in, you're getting a babysitter potentially, and then you're not getting home until 4:30 if you live in Chapel Hill, or even, if you live in Charlotte or Raleigh, 5, 6, you're wasting a whole Saturday. So I can't blame people not coming to want to see this team because it's not a good product. And now you have 3 losses, and the morale is an all-time low, like you touched on. It was a sad post game with Mack. I didn't stay for the players, but hey, what do you tell your players? They know they don't have it. You now have 3 losses, so you're already behind the 8 ball in the ACC at 0-2. And I think apathy is kicking in. I want to talk about apathy a little bit later. Let's stick on the game here. So the fourth and 2 in the first quarter after the 19-play drive, and the 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter when you needed points. Mac, and I understand, like, you want your coach to go for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want that aggressive nature. Like, if they get it, it's an awesome play. Like, I remember so many times in the last couple of years with Phil Longo, they'd go for it around the 30 or 40 no man zone and get it, and you're like, that's awesome. You buy an extra series. I think when you don't have a really good quarterback, it reduces the plays and the likelihood of converting. And this offense needs points. Like, if you get it within the 20, you've got to get points because you don't know the next time you're going to get there. Now, I think Mack's mentality is if we're within the 10, we need 6. We can't settle for 3. And I understand that. And I understand Mack's mentality of, like, we need to get 6 to win this game because they have a good quarterback too. But on the other side, I mean, you need 3 points is great. Like, 3 points gets you a lead. They would have taken a lead at that point. What are your thoughts on kind of that debate? Because I see both sides of it.
It just feels like Mack Brown got like a basic analytics or like
Yeah.
data analytics course like when he came back to Chapel Hill and like was like, oh, okay, so I just go for it every time. And it's like, well, no. He's like, but no, I'm just gonna go for it. Um, I think it's the right call to go at 4th and 1, 4th and 2, deep in Pitt territory. But the
Yeah.
problem is they have not adjusted the play calling from when Drake May was here, right? Drake May can hit those throws. Jacoby Criswell cannot. And I think we saw that multiple times yesterday. Criswell like isn't an awful quarterback, right? But he's not an above average quarterback. And I would venture to say I don't think he's an average quarterback. And so when you have someone that can't make the consistent throws, he can make an occasional really good throw. But when you have someone that can't make the consistent throws, that 4th and 1, 4th and 2 takes away all your options. So you're out of the shotgun multiple times, which I don't understand. You have Amarion Hampton in the backfield. I know we went for it. We didn't convert with Amarion late in the fourth quarter, or excuse me, in the fourth quarter on 4th and 2. But it's makes it so that everyone knows what's coming, right? Earlier in the game, we hadn't converted on those 4th downs with Criswell passing. So when it came to crunch time, when we needed the 4th and 2 conversion in the fourth quarter, Pitt knew exactly what we were going to be doing, and they knew exactly who the ball was going to be handed off to. And so it takes away like an element of like what are they going to pass or throw just because we don't have the quarterback play to back it up. I at this point it's one of those things where we can point to the 4th down conversions, we can point to the secondary, we can point to a bunch of different things. On the whole, like for me, the coaching staff just hasn't gotten these guys ready to play, and they are not making the right play calls. They haven't coached their guys up correctly. I think we all know. The elephant in the room is this has to be Max last season. I think the fan base, the even college football landscape has kind of accepted that fact. And so I feel awful for the players, right? Like you're going into the locker room after another loss, 4 straight ACC loss, by the way, and your coach is going to be there. And so like what is the game plan? I mean, like in your mind, like how do you approach this moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we could get to that for sure. I want to talk about it for sure. One last thing I was gonna say about the plays there. At the end, the fourth quarter one, and I talked to Bryn Renner, former Big Hitters Only
Yeah,
guest, because he was doing the sideline stuff, and I was like, "Do you take the points there, kicking?" He's like, "If you take the points, so that if they come back and score, it's still a 1-score
yeah,
game, because
yeah,
they went down and scored, and then it was 10 points." And UNC got the ball back, and they have to score twice with like 2 minutes left or whatever. And this offense can't do that. That's why I think with this offense and this quarterback, you have to take points when you get them because you don't know the next time you're going to be there. And the likelihood of scoring twice in a 3-4 minute span is very unlikely with this quarterback. can't move the ball down very fast. Some positives here before we get into a broader kind of stats of the season and stats of the program. They got McCollum involved more, had a deep play with
Yep.
him. I thought the defense, they did not pressure the quarterback, but you like to see Caleb Cost. I mean, what kind of is weird is that the offense didn't really do much because 7 of the points are from a 84-yard 6 pick, which you can't count on to happen every game. But Caleb Cost always seems to be making some plays, even though some of the secondary, like Marcus Allen's he's not having the best season. Let's go into some defensive stats here.
No sacks, 5 tackles for loss.
Yeah, there was no pressure when I tweeted that. I thought Will Hardy made some good plays. And then Amari Hampton, like you can just count on him. I mean, there's if the bet is the over of his running yards, I would always take that. I feel bad for him. I mean, he's gone after this year. He's probably gonna be a top 2-3 round pick, and he's stuck on a team where there's a good chance they win another game. Anything else positive stand out from you from this team right now? It was good to see Rucker back too. Rucker, like when he came in, he immediately made an impact.
Yeah. Copenhaver continues to have a really good under the radar season. I think it's worth spotlighting him. Our tight end room is pretty strong. I wish we had someone better to throw to him. Because I think they are a really strong group. Like you mentioned, Nate McCollum, I think 10 catches,
10 catches,
yesterday,
yards.
which is awesome. Awesome for him to see him step back up into that role. No, not a ton of positives, unfortunately. The lack of consistent pressure. Defense would make a play, and then the next play they give up a 10 to 15 yard play, kind of negating a good play to begin with on first down. Just overall frustrating, I would say.
And I think a key thing here is Pittsburgh went in the transfer portal and got a really good quarterback. Eli Holstein's probably top 25 quarterback in the nation. I do a power ranking on 24/7 Sports with Clint Brewster, and he power ranks the quarterbacks every week. And Eli Holstein's been in there all the time, and it shows you have to have a good quarterback. And UNC's, like Max said it, they're on their third string quarterback, a guy they didn't expect to play at all. I mean, it's kind of funny. They told Criswell when he committed, like, look, you're not going to play this year. You're coming in the summer. And now he's the guy. He's taking every snap. He's throwing 45 passes. He went 24 for 45 for 269 yards. He's running for his life out there. I mean, he played okay. I think he did maybe enough to win the games. The defense was just not there. And it shows a team like Pitt, they get a good quarterback, an Alabama transfer, guy that is a very highly recruited guy, I'm sure. And he comes in, he's one of the best quarterbacks in ACC right now, and has Pitt kind of lined up and looking really good on offense. All right, fan apathy.
Yeah.
I was kind of out on Mack and this team after the NC State game last year. That was a tough loss. And 3 losses in a row, early October. You only have 3 home games left. One of them's next week against Georgia Tech. Like, where do you think fan apathy is, kind of gauging on who you talk to and on Twitter, and how that kind of affects how you approach the rest of the season?
I think folks are checked out, unfortunately. Well, I mean, I would say unfortunately, but it's kind of what we deserve, right? Like, I think the best gauge of it is typically, during a normal football weekend before things have kind of spiraled here. I get texts from like 3 or 4 people watching the game, kind of, commenting good play, or, we messed that up or whatever. I'm down to like 1 text now from a buddy that's just, a sycophant that just keeps watching. I think folks generally, you see it in the crowd sizes, you see it in the discourse around the team on social media. I think folks are just knowing that this is Mack Brown's last year. They know that, this team is not gonna really compete for anything. Yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. I mean, folks are out. Folks are out on the program. Folks are out on Mack. Like, I think more folks are paying attention to like the coaching list, the coaching boards, in terms of who we could potentially hire, than they are for what's coming up next week. And so, I think like, from a leadership perspective, the team is still there, right? Like, and I think it's important to note, like, this team, these kids put a lot of effort into this. They are going out there, they are fighting. Like, this was a winnable game. By no means are they just giving up. I think if you're the coaching staff, knowing that this is it, I think you just kind of approach it from a week by week basis. Hey, we're going to win this next game. We're going to focus on this game only. Don't think about the rest of the season. Think about everything in the vacuum. Tune out the noise. Let's keep pushing. Because, you get 1 good win on your belt. Maybe you can turn the season around, make a bowl. I'm not super high on that. I don't necessarily believe it myself, but I'm not in that locker room. So all it takes is like one impassioned speech. Maybe someone makes a big play. Maybe, we catch Georgia Tech sleeping a little bit. And, big difference between 4-3 and 3-4, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, it kind of shows you how important that the Duke game could have been. I mean, up 17-0 at half, 20 early in the third quarter to get
yeah.
that win, and then you have a little more momentum going in the Pitt game. Pitt game was winnable. If you convert those fourth downs or make a stop here or there, it's winnable, and you're looking at 5-2, no, 4-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-2 and 2-0, and I mean it's completely different. And now instead shows you how it's the way sports work. And now instead 0-2 in the ACC, 3 straight losses, low morale. You got the pressure has to be kind of coming in on the coaching staff to keep this team together. I think the week by week approach is smart. And look, it sucks to not be able to play for anything and sitting here on October 6th, knowing you're kind of like the ACC is kind of out. Maybe fight for a bowl. That's probably the goal. Like, hey, let's make a bowl. But even then, like, God, I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to go to Shreveport in December. I want to start focusing on next season already, and that goes to the coaching list. I don't know if you read. We're Inside Carolina fans here. The potential 2025 head coaching board that Mack TTP put up. It is like. I mean, it's like
that guy goes in depth. He should be charging for that.
Yeah, he's the Inside Carolina legend, Mack TTP. Shout out. I mean, it is crazy the level of how he broke it down. And I was looking at Saturdays I watch football and then I get on the message boards and I am locked in. It's kind of depressing, but I've always done it because I'd be staying up late working, and then you get on the boards, you're reading stuff, you're kind of jacked up from the other games, and he breaks down all the different, not just the options, but the type of direction they could go in, whether it's a G5 head coach, whether it's a G4 coordinator, whether it's a retread from the NFL or a fired coach from the Power 2. It's interesting breakdown. So if you are, we're fans in South Carolina, check that out because it kind of breaks down all the different potential options. It goes into names. It goes into the history of how UNC has hired in the past. But I do think there's going to be a change. There has to be a change made unless there's some miraculous win. Because you look at the schedule here. I don't know if we should just break it down here. I think this is interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really see all the games look the same to me. Like, I don't think there's one that's an outright loss. Looking at how UNC's played the last 2 games, but I don't think there's one that's an easy win either. The ACC is just like so basic. There's no really, really good teams outside of Clemson, maybe. I mean, Duke lost last night. Georgia Tech beat Duke. UNC plays Georgia Tech next week. Virginia won, I think.
Yeah, Virginia's 4-1, and so if I can get one win for the rest of the season, please, Heels beat UVA because I'm going to hear about it here in Charlotte. So hope we don't.
And like Florida State is probably a little bit in terms of the locker room morale. Florida State's probably similar to where UNC is. Like, they can't get a win, and they started off 0-3, I believe. Wake Forest beat State. We have them in Chapel Hill. They are not great. State's not great. Boston College, I think, won.
They lost to UVA. No, they lost to UVA. They blew a 14-point lead.
And that was a team that looked kind of good because they beat Michigan State, they beat Florida State, but losing to Virginia kind of quick. So there's no UNC could win out.
It's the softest schedule we've had in years, and we may not win. We may not make it to a bowl game. It's like that's the biggest indictment I have. It's the softest schedule we've had in years, and we're going to struggle to make 6 wins.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And I was going into the season, I was like, all right, this is an easy schedule. Even with a mediocre team, Mack should probably be able to get 8 wins. Like, this is the schedule he needs when his team is down in talent, which we knew was going to be without Sam or Drake. And now you're looking at, like, I kind of, a part of me wants them to lose out, and it's an easy cut. It's an easy, like, look, Mack, you can't go 3-9 with this schedule. Losing at home to Pitt, to Georgia Tech, to Wake, to State. You can't be losing at Virginia and Boston College like year 6 with everything we've done for this program in terms of recruiting and transfer portal NIL. You can't be losing these type of teams. So the side of me, it's like let's just bottom out and then clean house. Maybe keep around Lonnie Galloway.
I love Lonnie.
Keep around, but dude, we need a clean cut, and it needs to be like a new era of UNC football. And I think if they start winning some games, Mac and the Donors, there's going to be some sort of ego that clicks in that's going to allow him to stay on. I just hope that doesn't happen. I think there are some wheels in motion. But
I don't think there's a number of games they can win that Mac will stay. I think they're out. I think Mac could. The only way Mac stays is if he wins out and then wins the bowl game, in my opinion. Otherwise, I think he's done.
yeah, I agree, but I just don't know the power of his buddies and the Donors and whether they're still in on him. Of course, if I was a donor and I had a rick ton of money, I would want to win. If I'm putting, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this program to pay for assistants and pay for NIL stuff, I want to see wins. I want 9 wins, 10 wins competing for ACC championships. Um,
Really quick. Give me one name, really quick, that you would like for next season. Who would be your guy?
It'd be that Tulane head coach,
Yeah,
John Summerall.
yeah,
But I think he is in line for an SEC job, like
Florida.
Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky. If that coach retires, I think he's the next hot name for a bigger job. I've always liked Glenn Schulman. I was
Yeah,
looking
that
at
would be my
name
game.
Glenn Schulman, the DC at Georgia.
Yeah.
You start Googling these names on that thread last night, and the OC at Oregon, dude, when you start seeing those guys born after you, like 1989, you're like, God damn, what am I doing with my life? But the OC at Oregon is a young dude. He's a hot name. I want young, but I want someone who is coached and been a coordinator in a big time program like Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Ohio
Yeah.
State. I want someone who knows and has learned under and knows how to operate the transfer portal and recruiting and NIL at a very high level, rather than. And but I would not mind a G5 stud either. Just a young dude, a go getter that knows how to coach games and can win without
I think they're
talent.
I think they're going to go young. I don't think a lot of it matters for hiring unless unless Bubba makes a dedicated effort to continue raising NIL, and the pool of money for our assistants has to be significantly higher. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if you hire the best coach in the nation, from an X's and O's standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, if you don't back them up with financial support, whether that be their assistant salary pool or, the NIL money needed for recruiting to be competitive here, it's not going to matter. So that's the big question I have is like, is there an actual dedicated effort to give the next coaching staff financial support? Because I do
Gotta
think
bring
we've been hamstrung by that a little bit recently.
gotta bring on Julian Council for his rants on that stuff. I mean, the crowd speaks. I mean
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. Those ticket sales, the money for concessions and parking, and like when you're not selling, it's not sellouts. That hits the pocketbook because football is a driver. I know a lot of it's TV money and a lot of other stuff, but the fan support is a big part of kind of what makes decisions around here as well. All right,
yep.
anything else on football this season? Are you going to be at the game next weekend?
I'll be at the game next weekend. I'm gonna get up early and drive down for it because I hate myself, I guess. I don't know.
What's that wake up time for that one if you want to get some tailgating in?
I don't think we're gonna get much tailgating in. I do want to do a blue cup after the game. I think my goal is to try and get to my friend's place in Cary at like 11.
Ooh.
So that will mean, yeah, that's gonna mean probably a 5:30, 6 a.m. wake up on a Saturday. So,
Why not drive down Friday?
my folks are coming into town. Gonna do a nice little dinner here in Charlottesville. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, cool. I may go because the blue-white scrimmage now has moved to after the football game.
Okay,
So,
nice.
did you see that? Yeah, they canceled
I
the
did
Cherokee
not.
one because it's supposed to be in Cherokee. So they
Yeah.
moved the blue-white scrimmage to 45 minutes after the Georgia Tech game ends. So media-wise and trying to see this
Hmm.
basketball team, I don't do the drive to the Greensboro to Chapel Hill drive is grinding on me. I did it Friday and Saturday. I'm not used to, I'm used to being 5 minutes away. And that kind of eases us into because I do want to see this basketball
Yeah.
team
Let's
kind
talk
of
some
get
basketball,
after it.
man.
Yeah, so media day was Friday in Chapel Hill. I want your initial thoughts. What are 3 things you're excited about the 2024-25 Tar Heels? Because first game's about a month away, October
Yeah.
4th, around then. So what are you looking forward to? What's got you kind of your gears going with this team?
Yeah, so I'm excited. Primarily, like I think RJ Davis coming back. We have a potential National Player of the Year candidate, right? Like the guy is a stud. He's not talked about enough. Like, and we talk about him a lot, but he's not talked about enough. Considering what he did last year, where he's now consensus All-American last year, coming back, last ride. I'm really excited to see what he's able to do, especially with a little bit more talent in the guard position around him. What happens when he's not the only guy that can make, 3-pointers. Um, Second thing, I think I think Drake Powell and Ian Jackson, man, we have not had those stud freshmen that like are potential lotto picks in a couple years. Um, I'm sure you're hearing the same things, like the rave reviews out of Carolina right now about those kids, like has me excited. I think Drake Powell is gonna be a stud. I think that's gonna be really tough to keep him off the court uh, pretty early on. I don't
Drake
know if he's
Powell.
gonna be, yeah, Drake Powell.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be the guy that's putting up, double digits every game point wise, but everything I've heard is that guy is the real deal. And then finally, like one thing that's maybe a little bit under the radar, Seth Trimble, man, like kind of seeing that journey where you enter the transfer portal, you make the decision that you love Carolina, you're coming back, you talk to the Carolina, family, make the decision like, hey, you know what, I'm going to give it another go. Um, they've been talking pretty highly about him too. I don't know if you saw the ESPN report, but they were mentioning how he might be poised for a breakout campaign, 6 man of the year. I think seeing him develop and kind of continue on that path, especially with the narrative that's kind of there now, will be really cool. So very high on that. I think my biggest concern is lack of a like definite like stud in the post. I think that's well known. Carolina kind of missed on getting some. They had a couple targets at the 5 in the transfer portal. They did not hit on. We were able to get a couple guys, Manal and Lubin, to kind of come in, and I think they're going to try and do it by committee. They're recreating Armando Bacot in the aggregate, to
Yeah.
quote Moneyball. But I'm excited. I think we're going to score a lot. Rebounding and defense is my concern.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of great talking points, and a lot of people that are talking like this in preseason. With Drake Powell, I mean, I don't know how you keep Ian Jackson off the court. You
Yeah.
Drake Powell. I think Ian Jackson's the one that. I mean, I think both are gonna be great. I think Ian Jackson's gonna be super fun to watch. I spoke to Ian Jackson and Drake Powell for the first time. They're gonna be very easy fan favorites. Drake Powell is your classic Carolina guy, well spoken, like clean cut, like very likable, easygoing. You kind of hope you get 2 years out of him because I've seen him on mock drafts because he's six
I don't think we
seven,
will. Yeah.
athletic. I just don't know if his offense is going to be there, but sometimes they'll draft on potential. And if he has the measurables as a defender, a 3-and-D guy with the length and athleticism, they'll draft him and then he can develop. But he's legit 6'7", skinny, but he's going to play a lot of 4. Talk
Yeah.
about that last week. Him and Kay Tyson can play a lot of 4. That lineup's going to be exciting if you can get essentially 4 wings, 4 guards out there. I'm interested to see how they bring in Seth Trimble. They bring him in and play him at the 3. Could he start, or does he stay as a 6 man, and then does he come in as a backup point guard, or does he play the 3 alongside RJ and Elliott, which is a pretty small lineup, but Trimble is super athletic and kind of plays bigger than he is. Ian Jackson, legit 6'5", going to be super exciting. He's going to be pushing the ball, and I think he reminds me a little bit of his game. Reminds me a little bit about Kobe White. A
Okay.
tall, fast guard. I'm not sure if the shooting is there, but I think he's going to be very fun to watch. He's got a very likable kind of New York personality. It's be fun doing reaction pods to that. I hope you have like more like friends on, because I have people over to watch the game and then go 15 minutes after the game. I'm going to kind of be interested to see how that works, how many we do. But always the optimism and hope of new players. There's 10 new players. There's only 5 returners, and the returners like Jalen Washington, Jalen Withers, we haven't seen them do a lot. I think good point about the aggregate. That was Hubert kind of said it, like they're gonna have to replace Baycott with 3 players and hope that among those 3 players you get 35 minutes of a big man who gets you 15 boards and 20 points. Whether that's Washington and Van Allen Lubin, or is it Jalen Withers, Jalen Washington, Van Allen Lubin all splitting time? Do they run with Withers for 20 minutes and Van Allen Lubin for 20 minutes? I've heard some positive things about the Ty Claude guy as a 5th-year guy who's experienced, who's built, who's played a lot of basketball and was in the ACC last year. And I think Van Allen Lubin, he's undersized, but he was a stud. He's not a stud, but he was a good player in the SEC. But I just don't know. I don't know how these guys are going to look. The known commodity is RJ Davis. And I'm excited to see, the backcourt's going to be fun, and the combinations are going to be fun, and seeing how Cadeau has improved, how Trimble's improved, and if we can get anything similar to last season from RJ.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for him to play as well. So, when he has down games, he's got to remember last year was a historic season. So, I think we're going to see a lot of different starting lineups and a lot of different lineup combinations, and then hopefully settle on something, come January 1st. There's a lot of cool games too.
Yeah, at Kansas. Yeah.
At Kansas is awesome. They got, is it Florida? I got it right.
We have Florida in Charlotte going to that game.
You're going to that game? Alabama in the Dean Dome should be rocking.
Ooh, that's going to be crazy. Yeah.
They have the 4 games out in Hawaii, but you could play, I think, UConn. ESPN doesn't list that whole lot, but they have 3 games for the Maui Invitational out there. And then
Carolina's developing a little bit of a rivalry with Alabama at this point. Especially when you look on the conference realignment horizon, that might be a big basketball rivalry in a few years. Who knows? But I really want to beat them.
The recruiting rivalry is what.
Yeah.
They
Nate Oates.
They've won some recruiting battles here as well. I'm trying to see who they play. So they play Dayton in the Maui Invitational, and then Auburn or Iowa State. I feel like
both good games.
I feel like we play Iowa State like every other year, it feels like. And then the final game, depending on how it works out, could be Colorado, Connecticut, Memphis, or Michigan State. You would expect
Connecticut
probably to make it, but I don't know, UNC could lose to Auburn or Iowa State.
True.
You never know. So it's really fun, and they'll be ready to go come ACC schedule. All right, anything else? You want to mention Caleb Wilson? You want to mention Olympic sports? What you got?
Yeah, Caleb Wilson on official visit to Carolina this weekend. Some good vibes there. We'll see how that turns out. We've got just some positive shout-outs, because we've been doing a lot of naysaying with football. Women's soccer, number 3 in the nation, only 1 loss. I think they're 12-1. Field hockey is ranked number 1, undefeated at this moment. So, a lot of great stuff for Carolina sports. It may not be getting the coverage that football does, but it's not all doom and gloom with the athletic department. There are some teams that are actually living up to their billing. So, worth mentioning.
And Caleb Wilson, for those who aren't locked into recruiting, he's the number 8 overall player in the 2025 class, which is the high school seniors. UNC got a commitment from Derek Dixon last weekend, so they're on the board in the 25 class. They're looking to take, I think, at least 2 more players. So another guard, and then hopefully some sort of forward, which would be Caleb Wilson, who's 6'9". AJ Dibansa visited a couple weekends ago. And it's big for Wilson to take an unofficial visit. You don't see
canceling an Alabama visit.
Exactly. You don't see it as much anymore coming to UNC on your own dime, because he did a official visit like almost a year ago as a junior. So this would be huge for momentum. It just seems like, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell were both top 20 guys, both 5 stars. So you can't really throw any shade at Hubert, because he has recruited pretty well. But you see these, I want UNC. I was telling a guy at the tailgate yesterday, I need UNC to get an NBA player. Want another, UNC hasn't had a really good NBA player in a long time, because the recruiting under Roy did take a dip when Duke and Kentucky with this one and done stuff. They were getting all the stud 5 stars. So Roy kind of went the Marcus Page, Joel Berry route and was landing these guys who stayed for 3 or 4 years, and those guys didn't really develop into NBA studs. The teams were good, but the NBA players, we haven't had a really, really good one since. Vince Carter is the last All-Star, which is kind of crazy. Of course, you have Harrison Barnes, Cam Johnson's decent, Kobe White, but they haven't had a stud, an All-Star since Carter. That's crazy. And I just think with NIL now, it's kind of legal. It's going to be a couple $1 million, but let's get a stud.
The NIL for basketball apparently is there. But one note real quick, between Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, incredible recruits. But Ian Jackson committed in January 2023. That was 21 months ago. And since then, it's been not the hottest of streaks. So it would be nice to pull in a top 10 recruit, kind of get back on that glide path, so to speak, and see what, I think it's really important. As much as I'd love to have both Ian and Drake for 2 years, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Carolina's kind of profile to put a couple guys in the NBA early. So,
no, I think that's good. I think I was talking to somebody else about that last year. I go to these tailgates, and all I do is just talk basketball recruiting. Ian Jackson, you want Ian Jackson to start. You want him to average double scoring. You want him to be a big time freshman, and you want him to be a one and done. first round pick, because then you can show proof of concept to other people, other recruits that, look, guy from New York came in, got playing time early. He was a freshman All-American, and he went first round. You want that because it adds to your resume as a developing program and where you can go and thrive as a freshman. So then you get more people in. That's basically what Kentucky's model was for the last 20 years. They're in for Braylon Mullins. He's deciding here pretty soon between Indiana, Connecticut, UNC. Nicholas Kamenia took an official visit to UNC a couple weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go.
And then Nico Bundalo is also on his official this weekend. So
for sure. But get on the board. Derek Dixon is good. The guy from Charlotte also visited last weekend or 2 weekends ago. Isaiah Dennis, I believe is his name. 6'5" guy from Davidson Day High School. All right. UNC Falls to Pitt. 3-3, 0-2 in the ACC. I'll be at AC Media Day for basketball this week. Wednesday and Thursday. I'm going to go to the women's and men's. So hopefully some stocks and pods there with some guys there, and then we'll talk to you next week also on the post Georgia Tech reaction show. There's rumors of doing it. He's not here. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I hope to go to the blue-white game. So hopefully we'll get Mike on at some point. All right, appreciate it, Mike.
As always, see y'all.
All right, see you guys.